In 2020, the business just took off. My phone just kept blowing up. And I just remember looking at it and being like, oh God, what did I do?
Tell me about this, why you started it and what you offered.
I basically figured out what the formula was. I have like a notebook where it has a full business plan mapped out. It included a potential community, it included one-on-one coaching, and it included the YouTube channel.
Okay, let's talk about your YouTube for a little bit.
I studied how to do it. I studied thumbnails. I studied editing. And I remember making that video and saying, I am never doing another video like this ever again. It was so much work.
What was the tipping point?
I just kept looking at it. And I was like, but at what cost? And that was the point when I made no money. Mm-hmm. And this is where things went terribly wrong.
Welcome back to the Creator Spotlight podcast. My name is Francis Zierer, and today we're speaking with Kaelyn Grace Apple, known to her 131,000 YouTube followers as the Redhead Academic. She is the creator of Accepted Society, which is a 500 plus member paid community for scholars in training, as she says. And she's also the former head of product development for Ali Abdaal. I want to speak with Kaelyn because she is a true creator entrepreneur who has also somehow managed to do all of this while pursuing a PhD. It's impressive. This is a great conversation about balancing all of that and also building sustainable, lasting, highly engaged paid communities. Accepted Society is, to quote, I think this is on the website, an online community for those that love learning. And it's a pay-to-access community that you started, I believe, 5 years ago, correct?
That's correct.
And when you started, it was an 8-attendee co-study community that you started because you were at the beginning of your PhD in 2020, right?
You've done your research, yes.
This is just the beginning. Walk me through the stages of the evolution from 8-person study group to now, where I believe you're at a bit over 500 members. I'm assuming that they're all paid.
Yes. Okay, let me back it up. So back in 2020, I had started my PhD. And the thing I missed most was just being in the library with my friends. It was the one thing that I could always rely on to get my work done, was if I could just lock in a space with my buddies. And I just decided I would put up a link on YouTube. And I just said, basically, if you want to come study with me, I'm going to put some times on my website. You can pay $5 and come join me. Because I knew that if you had some skin in the game, if you had a little bit of like money on the line, that you were more likely to show up. And then people started coming quite regularly. I think I was starting to do them probably like twice a week. And then it started evolving from that. And it started with 8 people. And then it just kind of grew to a regular 10 and then a regular 15 and then a regular 20. And it was in the summer of 2021 when I started thinking, okay, maybe I should start formalizing this. Like, we don't have a way to chat. And currently we're just using, my Zoom account, and we're only able to do it when I'm available. And at this time I had just started hiring. I had hired a girl who had been one of my first clients for Accepted Consulting, which was a separate business.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
And I basically had her start running sessions along with me. We ended up moving everybody over to Slack. And I really didn't like the format of Slack personally. It felt very corporate. Didn't really like Discord. It felt really disorganized. I think we were on Slack for about a year, or like a little under a year. And that was the point when I discovered Mighty Networks. We moved on to Mighty Networks. And that was when I would say we officially became what I would term a community. Because before, the way I would market it was like, oh, this is a co-studying space. This is a co-working space. This is about accountability. The study sessions were themselves called accountability workshops. And that was essentially all that we offered at the time. And then we moved over to Mighty Networks, and I started doing monthly resets. My team had expanded. We started running regular sessions. I think it was like about 3 times a day, Monday to Friday. And
so 15 sessions a week.
Yeah. It was quite tedious. But we all had to get work done. All of us were students. So it wasn't that challenging to get people to fill in and to run sessions, because all of us needed to get work done anyway. And at the time, the format for the study sessions was like, you jump on, you say hello, you say what you're working on, you do a 50-minute sprint, and then you talk for 10 minutes and whatnot. ultimately we got to the point where we realized that that was quite tedious and quite draining on the team to have to facilitate so much communication in the middle of a session. So we ended up introducing silent sessions. And then that's kind of where things like could expand a bit. And it wasn't until August 2024 when I had brought my new business partner on and we decided that we were going to completely rebrand Accepted Society. I had closed my consulting business. We were really focusing on this being a community. And at the time, what we would market it as is this is a community for academics. And we moved it over to Circle. And that shift, the rebrand, the restructure, and really focusing on it being community led is where things really just started skyrocketing, because we had a consistent like 200 members for about a year. And we had hit a bit of a plateau. Like we never saw the number like dip dramatically, but we just saw that churn kind of kept things within the like 180 to about 225 range. And when we moved to Circle, we brought over about 200 members with us. And in a year, we over doubled our membership.
Wow. Okay. So there's a lot of things I want to go back and do that. So there's kind of two times when it sounds like it becomes more solidly a community. The first time, I don't think you said the year, but it was when you got onto Mighty Networks, and that was 2022 or 2023.
Yeah, I believe it was 2022.
Okay. So,
yeah, it was right before I came to London. So that was, it would have been.
So what happened then? What were like the things that started happening within the community that made it so you would officially term it a community? Like what was the tipping point to like informal group of people studying together to community?
What I kind of termed the transition point into what is genuinely a community is when people are engaging with one another outside of you. Yeah. So they're developing friendships, they're giving advice to one another, they're, creating in-person experiences together, they're DMing one another, they're creating support groups that have nothing to do with you. That's kind of where I saw the community becoming its own. And when we moved to Mighty Networks, the organization of it was such that we also had all of these spaces that was like parents in academia, disability in academia, neurodivergence in academia. And so there were all of these like sub-community groups that were forming. And that's when I would say it really did start to feel like a community that wasn't just people joining because of me. They might have learned about it because of me, but they were staying because of each other, and it had nothing to do necessarily with me or with the team.
Yes. No, I love that. I definitely agree that like what makes a community is when it's people within interacting with each other and not like the original person who convened people. So then in August 2024, when you shift from the team-led model to the member-led true community model, was that something where you were only able to do it then like a couple years after that initial terming, because then like those connections had started forming and people had enough trust in each other? Like, why were you able to do that then?
I think it was one that it was seen as an opportunity rather than as something that was being asked of them. It was like, oh, that we have this great opportunity for you to lead sessions if they're not available by the team. So that way we can really run it round the clock. And that was something we always struggled with. We really wanted it to be something that we could run around the clock, but we couldn't, just based on the numbers, like we couldn't make that work. And the other thing that made a big difference when we moved over to Circle, and the reason I don't think we could have done this at the beginning, is that people had such a relationship with one another and with the brand that they were so bought in that any kind of new feature or a new opportunity was seen as a plus, rather than as something that was like, oh, they're just bringing out more stuff. Yeah. And I now do, I've done community management. I've worked in the creator economy space, like helping other creators and helping businesses create communities. And one thing that I think people make the mistake of is trying to get to the member-led model too quickly, and also trying to scale too quickly. We never pushed to scale Accepted. Like we've never really had a set goal of how many members we want to be at. We've always grown based on who finds us and, who vibes with what we're doing. And we've always had a very open door policy of, if this isn't for you, if you're not vibing with it, that's okay. Like, it might not be for you. And because of that and that mentality, the community grew very slowly over the 4 years to that, that kind of 200 number. So that way, when we did move to the member-led model and we were really focusing on how do we make this really community-oriented, community-led lectures, community-led study sessions, all of that, then it could kind of grow based on referral. We weren't worried about us being the main lead generators. And so just the overall structure of it changed. And I think the overall energy in the community shifted because they felt like they had more control over where the community was heading and what they could get out of it. And it wasn't just limited by what the team could offer.
Hi there. My name's Tom, and I'm the producer here on the Creator Spotlight. I promise we'll get back to the episode in about 30 seconds or so. But just before I was sitting down to edit this episode with Kaelyn, I was looking through our YouTube analytics, and I realized that around 70% of you that regularly watch this channel are not actually subscribed to the channel. And I thought that was really weird, first of all, but then I started thinking about how I watch YouTube. And it's kind of the same as you. I watch the same creators every week, so YouTube just recommends those creators every week. You almost never actually need to hit subscribe. The difference here is, though, we've got some new content coming out soon. As well as this regular weekly episode that we do, we're going to start putting out highlight videos, further insights, breakdowns, and just some new formats that are going to change things up a little bit. So if you're a creator or you just want to get the most amount of value from the creators that we interview, subscribe to the channel. And we'll repay the favor by constantly improving the content that we make. Also, we want to hear from you. Leave a comment, tell us how we can improve the videos, and we will do that. Thank you. Back to the episode.
Okay, I love this because to me, any good community, there's some identity that people join because they feel aligned with that identity and they want to fulfill it more, and being in the community validates that identity, right? So looking at your page, on the shop for Accepted Society, there's a sticker and a sweatshirt that says scholar in training, right? And so I kind of see that that's the identity, which it's this person who in earnest wants to identify as a scholar, as an academic. There's this messaging around making higher education accessible for everybody. And it's about like, you join this because you don't feel like you belong to some ivory tower, but you would like to enter it. And I think I see this in your background. I understand that you were a professional equestrian, then you went to community college, then UCLA, then Oxford, and now Yale. So you've had this journey in from the outside in these tiers. And so it works. And again, you were saying like it only works when the creator, the original person who started it, also is the identity and also needs it for this reason. So for you and for everybody in it, it's about feeling outside of academia and wanting in.
I also think that the difference between a course model versus a community model is a course model has a direct transformation, whereas a community, that transformation is constantly in the stage of becoming. Like, you feel that sense of belonging, but that's something that you have to keep buying into. It's not something that you just, you've reached a certain milestone goal, and suddenly you've graduated and you no longer need the space. You no longer need the support. It's something that you constantly are seeking out and are constantly needing kind of validated.
Well, this is why, too, you do see sometimes courses and communities in the same business, because you do the course and it gives you something, but then you join the community because now you have enough to where you can kind of be conversant with other members of the community on the topic. But it's that ongoing thing. So the 500 or so members in there now, where did they come from? I know originally, I guess actually first, where did those first 8 people come from?
From watching YouTube.
From your videos.
Yeah, the first 8, I believe most of them are still in the community and are still very active. 2 that come to mind off the bat are Sandro and Lainey. Sandro was getting his master's, was about to drop out and was really struggling. And now, I mean, this is my claim to fame, is that he has now met his fiance through Accepted Society, and he is now getting a PhD. And yeah, Lainey she's a full-time construction worker, and she loves studying the Salem witch trials. So she joins the sessions and studies history for fun.
Damn,
and
that's awesome.
they found my YouTube channel, and the YouTube channel led them to the website where I was, where I had the click through to be able to join the sessions. Most of the time they're coming from my YouTube channel. Occasionally they're coming from TikTok. Sometimes they come from my business partner, but more recently it's coming based on referral.
Yeah.
It's either that their friend mentioned it, that a professor mentioned it, that a colleague mentioned it, or that another YouTuber, another creator in the education space has mentioned Accepted Society.
Mm-hmm. Why would somebody join this instead of joining, I mean, you said just a few minutes ago that you loved studying with your friends in the library before the pandemic. So why would somebody now, post-pandemic, join Accepted Society as opposed to just spending all that time with people at their local college or whatever?
Most of our members are in their 30s and their 40s. They're distance learners. They're returning students. They have kids. They have other obligations. They don't get to experience academia in the traditional sense. And I think that that's the unifying element to a lot of their experiences, is that they feel this, drive towards education, but they don't feel like they get to experience the trappings of the academic experience.
Yes.
And so they meet up with others in this community, and we study together, we work together, we encourage one another, but also there's more opportunities in person, for example, that we've started trying to encourage. For example, when I'm in Oxford, I always let people know a couple of months in advance and say, hey, I'm going to be in Oxford on these dates if you want to come and hang out and study. So they get to engage in that experience in their own way, on their own terms. And we do have students that are in kind of traditional academic settings. But I would say that the unifying identity that they also have is that they don't necessarily feel like they're finding their people. Either they're undergraduates that are really taking the education and the research seriously, and they're not really surrounded by people that are on the same track as them.
Too much partying at the local environment or something.
Potentially. And I also think that post-pandemic, those kinds of opportunities are becoming less and less. Even for myself, I used to be somebody that always went and studied at the library, always went and studied in a group study room when I was doing my master's degree. But post-pandemic, most of the work that I do is work from home. I think a lot of us have experienced, that working from home, you can add additional comfort. If you've got a chronic illness or you've got chronic pain. And so, all of those things are reasons why I think that people kind of come into Accepted, because they don't necessarily feel like they're getting that academic experience in the way that they might want.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's that post-pandemic, societal level fragmentation. It's the lack of alignment with maybe local peers, and then it's just the normalization of the work from home. Let's talk about the pricing. So you said at the beginning it was $5 to join in on one of the sessions, which I definitely agree. You said that that gives somebody stakes and makes them more likely to participate. I've definitely found that with pretty much everybody I've spoken to who has some sort of community. It's like at the beginning, maybe they weren't trying to make money from it, but it's just like I wanted the level of participation to be of a higher quality, and that's how you do it. It's quite simple. Okay, so right now, most recent pricing, I checked the other day, it's $28 a month or $297 a year for the Scholars membership, which includes community-led study sessions 24/7, the Writing Corner 3 times per week, community forums, book club, bi-monthly goal planning and accountability, monthly social events, and office hours. So that's the current model. Between the $5 to participate at the beginning and this, have there been any shifts?
In terms of the pricing, so there was, I think we were at like 20 when we moved to Mighty Networks.
$20 a month?
Yeah, $20 US. I can't remember exactly the timings of the increases, but when we moved to Circle, I know we moved up to 28. And that was largely because we had moved the business to Ireland and our taxes increased dramatically.
Oh, interesting.
So we just needed to be able to compensate for the VAT that was being taken out in order to pay our taxes. And in addition to that, the pricing for Accepted, it at the time was just kind of based on what the expenses were. And it just made sense to kind of keep that pricing as is. Recently, we've actually introduced a scholarship model as well. So it operates in two ways. So every quarter, we evaluate the number of monthly recurring members. And then we essentially have a calculation to see how many scholarships we can offer based on that recurring number. And secondly, we also have an option where members in the community, when we announced the scholarship, specifically said that they would want to be able to support another person to be able to experience it. And so we also have an option on the website now where you can actually gift a scholarship to somebody else on that scholarship list. So we every quarter go and evaluate what the number is that can be gifted and what number we can gift as an organization, and then, you know, make opportunities for people that especially are in zones where, you know, in nations where the currency
is a much lower value.
Where they just simply can't afford it.
Yeah. No, that's really nice. I don't know if I've ever spoken to anybody who has some kind of paid community for this who has this scholarship model, though I guess it makes a lot more sense to have a scholarship model for this education-based community. If you're a creator, you know the constant juggling act of making content, building your audience, and somehow finding time to monetize it all. That is why DIY Ule, one of Germany's biggest sewing creators, uses Google AdSense. She said it best: I can be hands-off and trust the ads being shown are making me money. With AdSense, you just add one line of code and let Google AI do the heavy lifting. It takes the guesswork out of ad placement, saving you time and helping you earn more from the content you're already creating. It is a simple setup with a serious payoff. Learn more at Google/earn-with-AdSense. That is GOO.GLE/earn-with-AdSense. Okay, I want to get off Accepted Society for a little bit. I have probably too many more questions about it left, but I want to make sure we fold a few more things in too. So Accepted Consulting, we mentioned this a few minutes ago, a business that you ran for almost 4 years, I think from early 2020 to end of 2023. You had around 550 clients over the lifetime of the business, much more obviously of a one-on-one type thing than Accepted Society. Tell me about this, why you started it and what you offered.
So it kind of requires a little bit of a rewind. So back in 2019, when I was planning to start my YouTube channel, I wish I could show you, but it's in storage somewhere. I have evidence of, I have like a notebook where it has a full business plan mapped out. And it was the summer of 2019.
Including a community, perhaps.
It included a potential community. It included one-on-one coaching, and it included the YouTube channel. And Accepted Consulting focused on transfer admissions, and then it grew to focus on graduate admissions. So primarily for people wanting to apply to master's degrees in the UK. And then, you know, that expanded. I started taking clients I say clients, but they weren't paying me.
That's how every business starts.
Yeah, I started working with clients in like late 2019. I think it would have been like October, November. Basically, I developed a system. Like I had studied all of the YouTube videos on admissions. I had looked at like college admissions experts and what they had to say. I read so many statements online, and I basically figured out what the formula was, but I didn't want to do college admissions because I hadn't applied directly to college. I didn't have experience doing that myself. And also that particular demographic didn't appeal to me because
I feel like it's also a really saturated market. Maybe I'm wrong, but like, yeah.
It is. Yeah, it is a very saturated market. It is a very lucrative market. If you want to get into the college admission space, I mean, you could make $10,000, $20,000 on a single application. Jesus. But that wasn't my game. I wanted to help transfer students. I wanted to help non-traditional and first generation students get into higher education. And so basically I did this market research to figure out what everybody was paying and what their rates were. And like I said, the average application was like 10 grand. And then I looked at some other businesses like Crimson Education and others, and they were really shady about their pricing. And it would basically, I didn't see a service that was less than a couple thousand. And so I basically said, okay, well then I'm just going to make this like stupid cheap. I think I started doing calls for like $20 after I had done a couple of calls for free, and then the volume started increasing. And so then I started doing it at 20, and then it raised to 50, and so on and so forth. And basically, to do a massive time jump, in 2020, the business just took off. I had started my PhD. I was helping people with PhD applications. And I remember I was going to do a free graduate admissions workshop. And with it, I like had a discount code. And I just remember I put the story slide up on Instagram, and my phone just kept blowing up with new people signing up to the workshop, new people signing up to do coaching. And I just remember looking at it and being like, oh God, what did I do? I'm in a PhD program. I don't have time to run a business, but went with it. And then I took the advice that I was seeing online, which at the time, the only advice that was really there was delegate, hire, scale. And so I did. And between 2020 and then the summer of 2022, I had gone from a team of me to a team of 15.
15?
Yeah. Do not recommend.
What were the functions? Like, I mean, you don't have to tell me every single person, but like roughly,
yeah.
What was the order of function you hired?
Yeah. So we had 2 marketing, 2 admin, and then the rest were admissions coaches that were paid by commission.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just blew up. And the thing was that we were meeting demand. I mean, the reason I hired was because the first year, I think I did like 60 clients in 1 year. And I had looked at it and I was like, okay, I need to hire somebody else to help me out. And I felt so guilty anytime I had to turn somebody away that I was like, okay, I'll just keep hiring so that way I can meet demand. And
surely this will fix it.
Surely this will fix my problem. And yeah, it was the following year. And basically throughout that year, I had been in communication with my team, and especially 2 of the girls that were really close in terms of my executive assistant and my head of marketing. And I basically said, I can't keep doing this volume. Like I had done 80 clients in 2020. I think it was in 2022 that I did 80. And I was like, I don't think I can do this anymore. Like I have comps, I have exams, I have to write. And that was the point when I had looked at changing the business model. Basically, everybody was saying like build a course. That way people aren't on your one-on-one. And this is where things went terribly wrong, in my opinion. Because I should have just looked at it and I wish somebody had like given me a come to Jesus moment and just basically said, you can run a small business. You can turn people away. You can just running a sustainable business is so much better than running a big business. But the influences I had and the people I looked to had big teams. And that was the kind of marker of success, was being able to say you had a big team. Yeah. And it just, from that point, I just remember kind of questioning every decision we were making and why were we doing it in the first place. And ultimately I moved to London in 2023. And when I moved to London, I think a lot of things in my life needed to be evaluated. And at the time, Accepted Consulting was doing really well financially, but I just kept looking at it. I was like, but at what cost? Like, I have so many calls every week with clients, with my team, and the expenses keep going up, and like the margins aren't that great.
And surely your studies were suffering a bit.
Yeah. And it was just too much to manage for something that didn't feel like I cared enough to keep it going. And I just kind of fell out of love with it and decided, you know what? I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to take a year. I'm going to figure things out. I'm going to close this arm of the business and I'm going to focus on the community. And yeah, so then in 2024, so I closed it in 2023. 2024, I decided I was just going to focus on Accepted Society. And that was the point when I made no money from the Accepted franchise or Accepted brand.
Because you had a team there as well, which now.
Yeah. So I had downsized all the, I didn't have any more of the consultants, but I still had a team that was helping me run the sessions for Accepted Society. And basically, I looked at it, and at the time I was like, well, I really, really care about this community. I'm just not going to I'm not going to do anything for a year. I'm just going to let it ride and just see what happens. And that was the year where the community kind of just sat at a plateau. It broke even. It didn't make a lot of money, but it didn't need to. And that was also the year that I took the job with Ali, and a lot of other things changed.
We'll get into that shortly. Let's talk about your YouTube for a little bit. So there are, as we record, around 131,000 subscribers. Most of your content, I think your oldest video is somewhere around 6-7 years old. And your most popular videos are all a little older. None of your 6 most popular videos, which 6 with over 100,000 views, none of them are from this year. The most recent of those is 3 years old. And these are all sort of evergreen how-to videos about taking notes, annotating PDFs, getting into Oxford, writing a research paper, and writing a statement of purpose for grad school applications. Those are the above 100,000 ones. And so obviously evergreen content like that always receives compounding viewership. The most popular one has 1.7 million views, 3 years old, how to read and take notes like a PhD student, tips for reading fast and efficiently for slow readers. And then your most recent videos are all, for the most part, vlogs and video diaries with between 8,000 and 6,000 views. Yeah. So my question, and I do have one more little spiel before the question. My question is what is your content to you? Why is it important for you to make content? Clearly in the past, you mentioned that originally there was this plan, and I guess it was lead generation of some sort. Yeah. And then the last sort of note here is I've learned from creators I've spoken to that people do well to focus on niche, highly educational, domain expert content at first. And then once they've established an audience, they expand into more lifestyle content about them and their lives. And that's seen in your history there. But so that's sort of, for the listener, a brief history of your YouTube presence. So my question to you is, at this point, you're still making a ton of videos. At this point in time, what is your YouTube and your content to you, and how is that different from what it was 6 years ago when you had that roadmap?
Yeah, what's so funny to me is that when I started the YouTube channel, it always came back to what would I need to see 5 years ago or 3 years ago? What would I have benefited from? And when I was at Oxford, I had started the YouTube channel primarily because I wanted people to see that a community college student who did not have perfect grades could get into UCLA. They could get into Oxford. That wasn't unavailable to them as they might have thought, as I thought. And I don't think the mission's changed that much. I now really focus on creating content that I still think I would have benefited from seeing, 3 to 5 years ago. But now I also create, for me, 10 years from now, when I look back at my channel, and I want to be able to, I want to see the process. I want to know the good, the bad, the ugly. I want to be able to remember all the things that I was thinking and feeling and going through. And I'm so glad that I've done that, because now, I still go back and rewatch my vlogs from Oxford or from my early days as a PhD student, because it's this constant reminder, not only of evolution, but actually how much hasn't changed. That my character, the things that I value, those things are the same. And so for me, I create primarily, I create primarily for me. And the other thing that has changed in my content strategy, so I'll go back to 2022. 2022, I doubled down on strategy. We were trying to grow the business. I knew that we needed lead generation. And so I studied how to do it. I studied thumbnails. I studied editing. And that how to read video, I remember it took me 4 days to edit. It took me forever. And I remember making that video and saying, I am never doing another video like this ever again. It was so much work. But also, I am proud of that video because of the strategy, but like, I don't go back and rewatch that video.
No.
I'm so glad that it's helpful to people. And I'm so glad that it's, you know, it is a significant lead generator in terms of that's how people find me. But that video wasn't for me. It was for
a
other people.
search engine optimized education.
Yeah, absolutely. And now the goal isn't necessarily to grow big, to grow fast. It's to make content that I really want to see online.
Mm-hmm.
And the content that I make that's a bit different now is, I would say, more kind of politically aligned with the things that I care about. So when I left my 9-to-5, when I left my job with Ali, I remembered saying to my manager that one of the reasons I was leaving was because there was more I needed to say about higher education and about humanities and about history. And in order to do that, I needed time and I needed the space and I needed the creative energy to make that happen. And so I don't make those videos because I think they're going to get massive reach, even though they tend to perform better than vlogs just because of that SEO and that it's a bit controversial. But I want to ensure that, one, that there's a voice in the room that is speaking on behalf of higher education and is speaking for the positivity of higher education. But two, it's actually more of a call to action to my colleagues to say we cannot keep being silent in the academy. We cannot, as scholars, remain in the ivory tower safely, that we need to engage in this conversation. We need to be able to combat misinformation. And so it's not a growth strategy, whereas in 2022, it was a growth strategy, whereas now it's more, I guess, like a value-driven strategy, where I just want to make sure that when I'm putting out content, that it's stuff that I want to see and that I feel is contributing in some way to helping a broader mission or to helping somebody on the other side of the screen feel seen in some way.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very quick question that is almost crude to ask after those lovely notes about value-driven content. This is something I ask every guest, which is what are all the different ways that you currently make a living? So you don't have to tell me that you make X dollars from X thing, but like, what are the 5, 6, 7, whatever it is? What are all the different ways you make your living?
No, I'm happy. I'm happy to share that.
And what percentage of the pie is each one?
Oh gosh. Okay. So
approximately. I know you don't have this off the top of your head. Yeah.
Okay. So the challenge is that for the next 3 months, I have a fellowship from Yale, but then after that, it's kaput.
We can count that for now.
I don't have any money from Yale after that. They've washed their hands of me. But that makes up about 50% of my income right now.
Wow.
And accepted is about 25%. So I've said this to other creators before when we talk about metrics and we talk about goals, and they're like, I want to make $1 million. I want to do this. And I'm like, I just want to make enough to pay my bills.
Yes.
And so accepted, I'll tell you, I make I make £2,600 a month from accepted. And that's kind of where I'll sit with accepted. The goal is not to make an astronomical living from accepted. It's just to cover the bills. And then basically any additional money beyond that is personal brand and coaching. So at the moment, I do personal brand strategy and online community building based coaching. And so I have a couple of recurring clients off of that. That probably makes up the other, I don't know, 20-ish%. And then the rest of it is a little bit YouTube AdSense, the occasional brand deal, and that kind of thing. I don't take as many brand deals as I did. That is strategic. It's also because the market's changed. What's one you've done? I
feel like I saw one with Notion, for example, or that wrong?
Yeah. So back in 2022, the sponsor market was great.
Yeah.
There were a lot of companies that I felt really aligned with that were seeking collaboration. And so I've worked with companies that I really loved, like Notion, Paperlike. I've worked with Squarespace, etc. The market in terms of long form video content, the brands just don't pay as much. But in addition to that, the market is very saturated with AI companies, and it's not something that I feel ethically right promoting. So I only take brand deals if I'm the one that reaches out to the brand.
My impression too, with sort of this, like the change maybe over the last 5-6 years in the brand deal marketplace, is that like brands have become more sophisticated about it. A lot of like what was more experimental then has now calcified into these like, oh, here's how you do it. Here is how much money you should put in for this outcome. Like there's a lot less like, we're just figuring it out now. People kind of have figured it out, which has in some ways contracted the market.
Yeah, agreed. So yeah, I do partnerships primarily with brands that I reach out to because I really like them. And now the strategy is actually more focused on short form content over long form.
So you mentioned the consulting. So I did see on your website that you list the one-on-one business coaching call service, and then there's also a creator community. Did you mention the creator community? Are you still doing the creator community?
So I do have the creator community, but to be honest, it breaks even. The goal for me was to have a group of people that really cared about the art of content creation. And so to me, it wasn't necessarily about scaling it. It was
again, it's a place where you get something out of it too. The value you're looking for is your own learning.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, I always believe that if you want to start a community, the best thing to do is to experiment with between like 5 and 20 people that are really about it, and do it for 3 to 6 months solidly, consistently, knowing that you're not really going to make much money with it. And then you can actually build based on that feedback. And so I have a very, very long and slow approach.
That's great advice. If you're a creator, you know the constant juggling act of making content, building your audience, and somehow finding time to monetize it all. That is why DIY Ule, one of Germany's biggest sewing creators, uses Google AdSense. She said it best: I can be hands-off and trust the ads being shown are making me money. With AdSense, you just add one line of code and let Google AI do the heavy lifting. It takes the guesswork out of ad placement, saving you time and helping you earn more from the content you're already creating. It is a simple setup with a serious payoff. Learn more at Google/earn with AdSense. That is GOO.GLE/earn with AdSense. So we've talked about it a couple times. I do want to talk about your year working with Ali Abdaal as head of product development. So you joined spring of 2024. You left spring of 2025. So 5 months or so ago as we speak. Tell me about that. What were you doing there?
Throughout my PhD, I have always kept an eye on listings because I always think it's important, no matter what, for you to be aware of what the market is doing. And I had professional experience in the Silicon Valley. You know, I'd been a professional athlete. I built a couple of businesses myself. And I just always wanted to see, okay, if I were to need a job right now, what would I apply for? What kind of value would I have? What could I ask in terms of a salary? And, you know, I kept an eye open, and I never really found anything or saw anything that turned my eye until Ali had posted that he was looking for a community manager to run his new productivity-based community. And it just clicked something in my brain where I was like, that's the job I would leave. This is the job I would do if I weren't in a PhD. And so I'm a big believer in open every single door and just see what happens. So I applied, I got through the group interview, and then I got a call back to do the primary interview with him. And I got the job. And funny enough, I got the job the same week that I heard that I had landed a really prestigious fellowship to Cambridge.
Classic.
And I was like, oh God. And I am a believer that you open up every single door along the way that makes sense and that you feel drawn to, but then your intuition tells you what decision to make. And at the time, I remember my gut was telling me to take the job. And so I helped build Productivity Lab. I had a team of coaches that I had underneath me. I worked very directly with Ali in building courses. And about 6 months into the job, I got a promotion to head of product. And at the time, Ali was also moving away to Hong Kong, and he was
in the UK at that.
He was in London previously. And I felt the business model change in like a matter of weeks. And at the time, the role really focused on building courses and then eventually building software. And my heart was in community. And at the time, I kind of just went with it and, tried to get in as much experience as I could. At the same time as then I had this huge epiphany about my PhD. I decided I was going to stick with it. I brought Kate onto the team, and I just felt so much energy around education. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of sat with it, kind of wrote it out for a couple of months. And the way that I felt intuitively was that the business was going to go in this direction and I was going to head out back on my own. And yeah, so I gave my notice in February. There was also a lot going on politically in the United States that I felt like I really wanted to be a part of the conversation, and I wanted my content to be a voice for hopefully like solidarity and
this is what you were talking about a second ago with the pivot in your YouTube content.
Yeah. And I just, at the time, YouTube was on the back burner. It could not have been a main strategy. Yeah. I was working on the PhD. I was working a very intense full-time job, and YouTube was just a coasting mechanism. Like it wasn't about making money. It wasn't about growing. It was just about producing content to share the experience and to be able to look back on it. And I'm so glad that I didn't stop.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I left at the end of March, and it was the right decision for me.
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes complete total sense. The getting the fellowship, him moving to Hong Kong, it seems almost no reason to stay. So Ali Abdaal, though, one of the brightest, most popular case studies for creator businesses. I wonder if there's one or two things that you really took from that experience that maybe you've brought back to the Accepted franchise or future plans for your work. One or two things about building online education programs and communities.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of community, because we were actually on Circle, that was one of the reasons I pivoted Accepted to Circle. And I'm so glad that I did, because I think the Circle platform and the Circle team are just, I think they're fantastic. And I really got to see how you would create systems, workflows, automations, etc., for a much, much bigger community. And so a lot of those systems we didn't have in play at Accepted. And I went back, and what was I think the biggest takeaway from my time working with Ali and what I apply in my business now, beyond like YouTube strategy, because that's also part of it, is making really mindful decisions about what's right for your business. Because I saw it inside of the business and how it is that we were really trying to scale, and we were trying to scale quite quickly at Ali Abdaal. And, there was a lot of expenses. It's a big team. And so they had to make moves in a way that made sense for them. And when I decided to focus on Accepted, there's a lot of things I learned that they did that I'm like, okay, it's an incredible strategy, but we're not going to do that for Accepted, because that's not how we run. That's not how we will run things. But because I have that knowledge now, I can decide this is what we experiment with. This is what we're not going to experiment with. And that was a big part of it, was learning essentially like what tools were available that I otherwise was quite nervous to test. But being able to test it in an environment where I was around people that were so knowledgeable and that, could provide a little bit of support and guide and those guide rails I am doing it in a much, much bigger community, much bigger business. That gave me a lot more confidence in doing it in my own. And then in terms of like content strategy, what I really appreciate about Ali and what I've learned from that is how much his enthusiasm drives the content and drives the growth of the business, and also impacts the lack of growth in the business or in content. That there is a degree of energy and authenticity that goes behind content that you cannot fake, that you cannot replicate. And I appreciate that when that energy was low for him, there was discussions on the team on, okay, how do we like take our foot off the gas so that we can give him a little bit of space. And that's something that I think I had been doing unconsciously with my content, but now I do it very intentionally, like, recognizing that, okay, I'm not feeling creatively energized by this thing. What does that mean? Because I saw him do it so often. And as somebody who, obviously has a much bigger channel and has a very successful business, I took that to heart and said, now I'm going to apply.
How do you correct for that? What are like the strategies or tactics or like steps you take to make sure that lower energy period is like, accounted for?
I often saw that, so there would be some mitigating factors. So they would make sure that when he had high energy and was really excited, that they would take advantage of that. They would film a ton of videos. They'd make sure they had a backlog and yeah, exactly. And to that extent, I did learn a lot from that as well. But also that when the energy is low, it's not the time to push. Like, that's the time to ease up. And somebody asked me the other day, like, how do you maintain consistency? And I would say I have a pretty serious consistency with YouTube, but I found that my audience, if I tell them honestly, like, hey, I have a deadline and there's not going to be a video this week, they're so understanding. And, while I could push to put the content out, part of what to me makes YouTube like fun and makes it something that I want to keep doing is because there's a community there. And I always say with people at Accepted, like, you have to give other people the opportunity to be there for you. And in order to do that, you have to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And if you don't give people that opportunity, they also don't have the opportunity to show up. And so if I continuously push myself and burn myself out on content and I'm producing stuff that I'm not really enjoying, I actually create that mistrust with my audience because they know something's wrong. But if I'm honest and tell them, hey, I've got a deadline, I'm feeling a little bit burnt out, they always come back and they're like, take all the time you need.
Yeah. So I was going to ask a question about how do you prioritize. Obviously, you've at different points in time, you've been doing like 10 different things, but I think you sort of answered it there. You listen to your needs and you prioritize accordingly and do less of this then, do more of this then. But I'm assuming that it's the spring semester 2026 you finish your PhD, correct?
We're gonna try.
Okay.
It might be a little later in 2026.
We're wishing luck. We're knocking on wood. But assuming that, I feel like a classic question people ask is like, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what do you think? I think that's unrealistic. But let's say 3 years from now, you're a couple years out of the PhD. Maybe you're still working on Accepted Society. I don't know. What do you think would be, again, there's no definitive answer to this. Today, how you're feeling today, where do you think you would like to be? What would you like to be working on in 3 years?
It's funny that you seemed hesitant asking that question. I feel totally fine answering.
Really? Because I personally, and so many people I speak to, so sometimes when I ask it, people are like, oh, geez, I don't know. So I stopped asking 5 years, and often I'll ask 2 years. You know what you want.
I can answer both.
Let's do it.
So, in 2 years, I'll be done with the PhD. And I want to be happy running Accepted for 30 years. Like, I don't know where Accepted's necessarily going. And I've had so many conversations with Kate about this. like, okay, where do we want to go? What do we want to accomplish and whatnot? And basically the thing that we keep coming back to is we want it to keep feeling this good. Like we want it to keep feeling this joyful and connected. And it just has this really beautiful energy that you just want to harness it and keep it going. And where that goes, I don't know.
I love this. This has been a theme throughout this whole conversation of you're kind of rejecting the fetishization of a scaled business and in favor of the lifestyle business, which is so often ridiculed. But I think personally, from people I've spoken to, maybe it's just the type of people I seek out, but more and more people I talk to are more attracted to that lifestyle business.
I mean, if Accepted did not grow at all from this point forward, I'd be dead chuffed. I'd be very happy with it. I make enough money.
You've been in the UK a while using a word like that.
I know. My partner makes fun of me for it. If it just continued like this, I'd be delighted. I'd be very happy with that. When I finish my PhD, there's a lot of public historical work that I would like to do. I've been working on a historical fiction novel. So maybe that'll result in something. I don't know. I really like engaging with history, but having a bit more creative leverage. Yeah. Flexibility. I want to be living in England with my partner and my dog. And the only thing that I think is missing in my life right now that I would like to have and see in the next 2 to 3 years is that I really want to compete again. I really want to be able to ride horses and compete again. There's one goal that I never accomplished. And it's the one thing that I think about when somebody asks the question of like, okay, if you were on your deathbed tomorrow, like, what would you regret? And I wouldn't regret anything. But the one thing I really want to accomplish in my life is being able to compete at a higher level with show jumping. So, I mean, so long as I can make all that happen, that would be swell.
I wish it all for you.
Thank you.
I guess we'll end it right about here. You've given me a lot. This has been a really great conversation. Time to plug anything you'd like to plug. I assume Accepted Society, maybe some of your consulting. Where should people go?
Yeah. So if you are a lifelong learner, if you love education, if you love learning, if you love reading, if you love learning about history, literature, philosophy, whatever it may be, then Accepted Society is the place for you. We welcome you with open arms. And if you want to check out some of my content, it's just my name, Kaelyn Grace Apple, on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And if you'd like to work with me on building your community or talking about personal branding, just send me an email. It's just Kaelyn@KaelynApple.com. I take clients on an ad hoc basis based on if I feel excited about their project. So just send me an email.
Love that. Kaelyn Grace Apple, thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. And listener, we will see you next week. Goodbye.